first reported from the Wall Street Journal about Nintendo had to slash its sales forecast dramatically, especially for the Wii U.
Right.
They thought they were going to sell a decent amount in the holiday season, and they didn't. They had to halve their Wii U software sales to 19 million units. So that was disappointing for them. And they said they expected to sell just 2.8 million Wii U consoles in the year to March. So that's not good. It was less than a third of initial estimates.
Right.
So what's going on here?
Well, I think before we get into it, well, I don't know. This is such a broad topic. Nintendo is about to have what my grandmother refers to as a come to Jesus moment.
Come to Jesus moment?
A come to Jesus moment. They need to drastically change some things with how they're putting the Wii U out there and handling the console side of their business. They're doing fine on the handheld. I mean, yeah. 3DS sold like crazy this year. They got out. Animal Crossing, they got out. Zelda, they got out. I know I'm missing something. Pokemon, Jesus. They had tons. They had tons of stuff. But the console side isn't doing very well. And we've discussed this before on the podcast, and we've both been on slightly different sides. I was more concerned, and you were a little bit less concerned, thinking that if the games came, so would the sales. The problem is those games are a ways off, and they still need to do something with this system. Before I touch into some of the things that I think would be a good move for them, let's just address the freaking doom and gloom that's all over the internet.
Sure. Okay.
Nintendo has a lot of money in their pockets.
They have
$4.5 billion at least.
According to Wall Street Journal, Nintendo has $4.4 billion in the bank.
Okay. They can suffer a few more fuck ups like the Wii U before they're in danger.
Oh, they could. Sure.
And no, they don't need to go mobile.
And going back to the 3DS, the 3DS profit's gonna off put, or it's gonna control the balance of some of the losses of the Wii U for sure. The company cut their sales forecast for the handheld by 25%, but it still was 13.5 million 3DS units this fiscal year ending March.
So
that's a lot.
Yeah. So the first thing I want to address is the fact that a lot of people out there seem to think that Nintendo needs to go mobile. They don't. That's a horrible idea. That's an incredibly bad idea for Nintendo. The reason is, one, you start slapping out garbage ports of old games onto the iPhone, which is what I think a lot of people want them to do. They want to see older properties go to the iPhone. They're not going to play well. They have to transfer it over. People think it's just dumping these ROMs. It's just this free thing they have to do. They don't. They have to port it. A bad port tarnishes the memory of certain games in people's heads. When you play a Nintendo game, for the most part, the things that you realize are the controller, the game, and how everything from the controller to the game and in between is designed specifically. It feels like they design everything specifically for their games. Their controllers. I hate the N64 controller, but the N64 controller is such a weird looking thing. Why? Because they designed it specifically to play their games. So you're going to tell me that Mario 3 on the iPhone is going to solve all their financial woes? They could make a lot of short-term cash, but it cheapens the idea of what Nintendo has.
I think people are also overestimating how much sales they would actually do.
Oh yeah.
Think about the market of a phone and how it's small little kids that, I hate to say it, they don't know who Mario is. A lot of these kids, they're 3 and 4 just getting an iPhone. Their parents give them an iPhone. They may not know, and plus they got to deal with Nintendo's not giving away their games for free. No. They're going to sell their games for if they're selling for $5 for a Nintendo game on the 3DS, they're not going to charge $1 only on the phone. It wouldn't make any sense. It would kill their sales on their other unit. So I mean, they're in a like a lose-lose there. Because the quality is going to be crap of these port games. Remember, I did a video about playing 1942 and like Street Fighter when Capcom was coming out on the phone. I think it was like 2.5 years ago. They were terrible.
Well, and here's the
unplayable.
Thing. People suggest that Nintendo needs to dump these things to mobile, right? And they think of those types of games, but when was the last time a company like Nintendo did that? I mean, Capcom has pretty much stopped doing that with like the Mega Man 2 and the Street Fighter that they did. They saw that, they did that for a while, they put them on the iPhone, and a lot of these companies that were just dumping all of their games onto the iPhone en masse, they stopped doing it because they weren't seeing enough of a profit, and because people were, the quality wasn't there.
Yeah.
Sorry, the Dayquil is making my head a little less than coherent, but you get what I'm saying. Like, they're basing what they think Nintendo should do now on this weird idea that kind of sort of died out like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And the companies that still do it, that still put those games out, that port it, those games get high resolution, transfers, and they get better touch specific control schemes. The era of putting an old game on an iPhone and just slapping a touch D-pad on it, it's pretty much done.
And it hasn't worked.
Right. Didn't work.
So does it make sense then to even experiment with, I don't know, licensing?
No.
You don't think even like, how Angry Birds has their Star Wars version? Nobody makes sense to have a Nintendo version of Angry Birds. Is that cheapening of their licenses?
I don't know about that. I just don't think me personally, I mean, I wouldn't want to see it.
Just stay away from it entirely.
Do I think that would matter in the long run? No, I'm not so bold to say everyone have that same opinion. But I think Nintendo themselves, it's all or nothing, and they're going to choose nothing when it comes to that market, the phone market. And there was points that you just brought up that I didn't even think about that make perfect sense too. Their handheld's doing fine, so why would they compete directly with their handheld? They would have to drop prices on an iPhone app if they're getting $5 for Super Mario 3 on the 3DS. And this is actually something we'll continue. They need to change that. But if right now they're getting $5 for something on the 3DS, they're not going to willingly give it to you for $1.
So why not then? Okay, obviously the 3DS is a smash success, no question about it.
Well, this goes back to. I'm sorry. Continue.
So why not they build their business around that?
Yes.
And then from there outwardly go back to the Wii U as a peripheral to their 3DS.
This is
which is originally what a lot of people thought was going to happen.
This is what you and I talked about this like a month ago, where I said much in the way that Sony was able to make the Vita look more appealing to people by showing what it would be able to do with the PlayStation 4. Nintendo needs to make the Wii U more appealing by showing what it can do with the 3DS, the thing that everyone already has and wants. And the first thing they need to do, because they haven't, is they need to unify the shops, the virtual consoles, and everything. There needs to be a high amount of cross-buy, cross-play content. I have a 3DS, right? If I knew that a lot of the stuff that I had downloaded on my 3DS, I could transfer to my Wii U and play, so I'd have a library of games already sitting there for me, I'd be even more inclined to get one. It's part of what got me to buy a Vita, was knowing that a lot of these games that I had downloaded onto my PlayStation 3, the PlayStation 1 games, some of the indie titles, I could immediately take my Vita home and drop them on that and go. So work it the other way. Put the download games that I have, put the virtual console and the download stuff that's on the 3DS, throw it on the Wii U.
I think a lot of people also assumed, and this is Nintendo's fault for not clarifying, or maybe they went in a different direction, they thought that the 3DS would be able to be used almost as its own controller on the Wii U.
Nintendo never said anything, but it just seems so obvious.
When they originally announced it, I think it was E3 2012. So before it came out, they were talking about how Smash was coming out on both systems. And I think at that point, they were going to be the same game. Like, at least when I was at the conference, and I was like, they're basically almost saying that it's going to be playable across the platforms on your 3DS versus someone on the Wii U playing each other on Smash Bros. And that would be amazing if they pulled that off. But either they couldn't figure it out or they moved in a different strategic direction. So now those two platforms are totally different.
I don't remember them ever saying that, but I remember a lot of people, that being the first question when they announced the two versions. But yes, this is also the what I'm referring to, the communication between the two systems that needs to happen. If something like that were the case, you can take Smash, the exact same version of Smash, on the go, play it, get good at it, and apply that directly to the one on the Wii U, or play with people on the Wii U while you're sitting, in an airport waiting, for your flight. You can jump on the Wi-Fi and play.
Yeah.
Now,
I thought that was going to be the end game.
That's why I always say I think when it comes down to it right now, I think the 3DS version of Smash is going to do better in terms of sales. People are going to buy the Wii U version for tournaments, but the 3DS has a bigger install base. You're going to play with more people on the 3DS, so people are going to buy
even
that
if it's
version.
the inferior version, that's going to be the version that they're used to.
It looks nice. I don't think it'll be inferior, but yeah, it's just different, which is weird and kind of a bad choice on their part.
Yeah. So it's not going to be a scaled down version graphically. It's going to be totally different. in terms of, I mean, not totally different in terms of the moves, but it's not going to be the same game.
They said all the characters are going to play exactly the same, but the levels will be different and the graphic style will be different.
So they couldn't figure it out. They couldn't figure out how to marry the two, which is a shame. And like you said, yeah, you talk about the eShops being totally different, having different products on both. From a marketing standpoint, I've always said whoever the marketing manager was should have been fired last year for the Wii U.
It's the U, it's the Wii. I mean, that's also come up in these articles, and it still comes up, and we've said it a million times, so I'm not going to spend more than a minute, but you named your product something that did not clearly convey to other people what you were selling.
Yes.
We've said it, like I said, 100 times, but there are still people who think the Wii U is an attachment. Or an add-on.
You could have called it the Super Wii, even. That would have been better than what they did.
They could have just given it a different name.
And giving it a different...
Or a numeral. I mean, I know I hate that. I hate the Xbox One and the fact that PlayStation's on 4 and all the creativity in naming consoles has died, but Wii 2 would have been a lot more clear than Wii U.
So they're kind of stuck to it. So some people are saying that they have this big announcement coming up on the 30th about the new sort of direction that they want to head into, or structuring of the business, and people are kind of curious to see what Iwata's going to say. But he clarified before and saying they're not abandoning the console market, which they shouldn't.
No,
it's not.
They never should.
They shouldn't jump off the building because they had a bad year. You know, they have so much. Again, they have so much freaking money in the bank from the past decade of the Wii strong sales.
Dude, their bad year is like falling and scraping your knee. Sony's bad year is like breaking an arm. You know, or losing a leg. I mean, it's very different. Not all of these. I feel like some people just look at it and they see, you know, a news article. Oh, Sony's in danger. You know, what's gonna losing money? What's gonna happen to the PS3? You know, blah blah. And they put all these companies on the same level: Nintendo, Microsoft, Sony. And preferences aside, you have to look at how much money they have. Nintendo can afford the loss.
Yes.
They can't afford to continue the loss.
No, they can't do this for 5 years in a row.
But this is not the end of.
But they can even ride. They can even ride this out for the next. I don't know. Say they're internally they're planning for a new system. We'll just say 2016. We'll just say fall. We'll just say they're going to give it another 2.5 years for a new system. They can ride it out until then, until they announce something new. You know what I mean? That's not going to be a problem. And again, the 3DS is going to help buffer that loss, which we know.
So I feel like.
So what are they going to say?
I feel like what's going to be announced is minor things, like I've mentioned, but minor things that are going to make a difference. The unification of the stores, more integration with the 3DS and the Wii U. So I because Nintendo is conservative, I'm thinking conservative. There's a lot of weird theories out there. Some people saying that they're going to put out a new system, and they keep pointing to, like, you know, allocations of money. It's like, no. Guys, companies start making new systems the second their new system comes out. That doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, they can't.
And if they did that, they would totally burn. They would burn so many bridges with people who bought the system.
You can't abandon your console that came out a year and a half ago.
No,
not even a year and 3 months ago. You can't do that, because then why would they trust you to continue with the new system coming out?
Right. That would be the worst. And I think the people who are saying that are people who. I don't know who
they just want people to say Nintendo jump in with a super system that's going to compete with the PS4.
Right, they want it to be a homogenous system that is just like the one in the PS4. I frankly like Nintendo always being a little different. I don't know what they're going to do. Like I said, I think it's going to be a couple of small policy changes.
They're going to unify their shops. They're going to try to integrate the 3DS with the Wii U more. Maybe there'll be a whole new marketing campaign. That can't hurt.
It would be interesting if because from what I've heard from a lot of people, you don't need the touch screen to play a lot of these games. Now, certain games you do. Mm-hmm. They make use of it. Some don't. It'd be interesting to see if they try to do a cheaper model without the tablet controller. Because Nintendo themselves has even said that the tablet controller is what keeps the cost of the Wii U so high.
So maybe a system that doesn't have it?
Possibly.
They sell it separately?
Now, because I don't know the Wii U intimately, but I know that it's not personally used. Like, for instance, most games can be played on the screen without the TV on, which implies to me that you don't actually need that bottom screen for anything. Otherwise, there's no way you can play the game without having the TV on. Certain things like Zombie U and maybe new Super Mario 3D World, where you can pop out the blocks on the touch screen and stuff, wouldn't work perfectly. But I'm trying to figure out, is there going to be a price drop somewhere in here that's going to help them compete, and how do they do it?
If they could figure out a way, it's going to be tough, if not impossible. They should have thought of it before. If they could figure out a way where they use the 3DS as that tablet controller instead, And then they could have sold one without the tablet controller. You could have used your 3DS, and that could have saved a ton of money. People would have jumped on board.
Big problem is, I don't know how big. 3DS doesn't have a second analog stick. Doesn't have a camera stick. Now, but they do have the Circle Pad Pro. So here we go. Here's an idea. Sell a version of the system that doesn't have the tablet controller in it, but has the $20 Circle Pad add-on in it.
Maybe that'll
slap
work.
it onto your 3DS. I don't know. That's a possibility.
And then you sell a system for $200 then instead of $300.
If they did that, I'd go out and buy one. Fucking next paycheck. That'd be easy. It'd be easy for me. Yeah. So I wish I had an answer, and I don't see a lot of. I don't see
a new system coming.
No,
anytime soon. It's going to be, like I said, I think the earliest would be fall 2016. And that's probably even too early. It might be 2017.
No, they got to give it the old college try. They got to give it. They got to give it a couple more years, and they've at least got to make the adopters who have already got the system. Yeah. They have to give them a library that's decent enough so that at the end of it all, they can look back, even if it doesn't succeed, and say, "Well, they tried." They can't drop it now.
I'll say 5 full years would be the minimum. So yeah, fall 2016, and then at that point, they'll say, "Okay, we gave it a try. 5 years, it didn't do it. That's not.
Hopefully, they'll have learned a lot.
5 years isn't a great run, but it's not an abysmal run for a system. Abysmal run would be like the Dreamcast, be like 2.5 years.
And then websites will get sentimental and run retrospectives about the 25 great Wii U games that no one played, and it won't look so bad.
The port of GTA 5 that came 3 years too late. Stuff like that.
So I felt like I had way more to say on the topic because it is a broad one, but
it's a broad. I think
I'm not
people. For some reason, there's some weird thing with people wanting to see Nintendo fail and being like say, "I told you so," and it's like
because they're stubborn, and people get upset at stubborn companies, and their stubbornness is largely what has gotten them into this mess. But their stubbornness is also what has given them the edge in innovating a lot of the things that they've done. So, like I said, one bad step could turn into 2 really good ones depending on what they decide to do.
So 8 more days, we'll see what Iwata has to say. Maybe it'll be something radical, maybe it's something small, maybe baby steps. Maybe it'll be something like we're reaching out towards third-party publishers and actually going to listen to them.
My brain decoded that as Iwata had a baby.
Maybe that's it. Maybe Iwata had a baby.
And his name is Nintendo.
They'll name it the Wii U 2. Okay.
All right.
Moving on from that. We love the Wii U. I'll still get a Wii U.
We love the Wii. We're the biggest Wii U fans who don't.
I thought when it was announced, I'm like, this can't fail. This is going to be as powerful as this gen. And no, they never got the third-party publishers on board. And
let's talk about that real quick. Yeah. Here's another problem that is happening with Nintendo, though. In the news, it comes across as pompous when you hear shit companies like EA and whatever talk about how they don't want to support it. But Nintendo's never been particularly great with working with other developers. No. They're really good about working with themselves, and they love themselves, and they preen in the mirror and whatever. But
hello, Nintendo, looking good today.
But if Nintendo really needs to do some serious outreach with third parties, and I do have a feeling that on the 30th, we are going to see a couple major announcements from come out of that about them getting some licenses and possibly some exclusives from bigger name companies that I don't even necessarily give a shit about, but EA, Activision, Ubisoft. Well, Ubisoft is kind of already in their camp, but Activision and EA.
I don't care if they got to fly out the CEOs of these companies and give them hookers and free blow. Do it. Get them on your side. Get the games on your system.
Yeah. So
Nintendo has the money, just do it.
So, I'm sorry, that was the point that was floating around in my head. I think that's going to be a big part.
Yeah, it's going to be a part of it too.
I think third-party outreach.
Remember the first conferences? They were on board. They're like, we're going to be doing. And then all of a sudden next year, we're not doing these games for. It's like what?
They need to lasso them back in.
Yeah, again, they got to stop being. I don't know. They give them free Super Nintendos. Something to make them happy. Okay.
All right, onward.